Welcome, my friends and folks out there. Yo. Welcome back to the Mortgage Mayhem podcast where real estate meets real talk. I'm your humble host, G Money, and our lineup today is explosive, of course. Got a lot of stuff we want to bring to you guys. And we're just gonna, get right off into it. I'm gonna bring my humble co-partner on this to kind of do a little house cleaning, then we'll jump right into this thing. Okay, y'all?
Welcome to the Mortgage Mayhem podcast, where the mortgage game meets real life, real talk, and a whole lot of chaos. We break down the deals, the drama, and the data behind the scenes of real estate finance, with a twist of street smarts, savvy, and a touch of madness. Before we dive in, here's the deal. The Mortgage Mayhem podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. We are not attorneys, CPAs, or licensed financial advisors, and nothing you hear on this show should be taken as legal, financial, or investment advice. Always consult a licensed professional before making financial decisions. Welcome.
All right. Make sure you do that, folks. Advise with a professional before you make any kind of financial, decisions out there. You just want to make sure you're doing the right thing, and just be dealing with folks you can trust, right? People that's transparent, that people that, say one thing and do exactly what it is that they say. Those are the kind of people you should be working with out there. But today we're gonna get off into a lot of different stuff. EBT misuse, fraternity hazing scandals, Trump scrambling to recall laid off federal workers, Nas getting the casino in Queens. We also going to be talking about the different four mortgage and real estate hacks that we have. So we're just going to dive off into this thing. I hope everybody's having a good week. I'm doing just great. A lot of good stuff going on. October's rolling around, so it's year's almost up, y'all. Year went by quick, and here we are. But let's bring up our first order of business here today. Let's talk about this here. So the Michigan House approves bill requiring photos and signatures on the EBT cards. Lawmakers in Michigan have advanced a measure that would mandate photos and signatures on state-issued bridge cards, which are used for food and cash benefits. Supporters argue the change will strengthen accountability and ensure assistance is going to the right people. The program distributes aid through electronic benefit transfer. Never knew that that's what that meant. And backers believe adding photos will help cut down on misuse. The bill was introduced by Representative Jason Wolford, a Republican from Howell, Michigan. He says the proposal is meant to safeguard benefits for those who are truly eligible. Next, the legislation heads to the Democratic-led Senate for debate. If approved there, it will move to Governor Gretchen Whitmer's desk for final consideration. So, with that, I don't really have too much to say. I mean, that's fair. If it's going to stop folks from, misusing the system and allowing the people who deserve to be using the cards, use the cards, but once again, I don't know what's got to go into this to make this happen, but they're going to find loopholes. I mean, that's just how it is, And then most stores are going to be in situations where, up front they might be all over, but eventually they'll ease, the floodgates of monitoring everything, and it'll get back to normal, source of business, the way that they've been doing things. I don't know how big rampant it is that folks is, using other folks, bridge cards. I'm pretty sure it's out there in some kind of capacity. But this should help that a little bit as far as it helping the system overall. that remains to be seen. So we'll keep our eye on it. I just wanted to kind of bring it because when things happen in Michigan, and we're a part of this community as well, because a lot of our individuals that's in our independent living facilities, they have bridge cars. So I like to just kind of stay abreast of it. If it comes down the pike, I like to speak about it, because as I'm doing this, a lot of times I'm educating myself as well. So, a lot of times, I mean, when I'm putting this together, I'm reading through it, but I don't, it's too much going on. So I had to kind of, you know, just put it in and keep it moving. So a lot of times I don't get a chance to just get all in depth about, the subject that I'm going to be speaking about. I have like the overall view of it so I can speak on it when it's time for me to speak on it. But a lot of times I get more in depth once I actually get here and go through this with you guys. So we'll keep our eyes on it, and we will let you know as soon as something comes down the pipe. All right. All right, let's keep this thing moving. So Omega Psi Phi fraternity is facing yet another controversy just 1 year after a young man passed away during intake at Southern University. According to WJTV, a student at the University of Southern Mississippi claims he was severely injured during alleged hazing to the point where he was in the hospital for almost 2 weeks. In the lawsuit, Raphael Joseph claims the alleged abuse started in December 2022 when he pledged with USM Nu Eta chapter of Omega Psi Phi. During that time, he allegedly suffered severe abuse, including intimidation, denying pledging sleep and food, stealing money for the pledges, and beating them repeatedly with a 2x4 plank of wood. On April 17, 2023, Joseph claimed they had to endure Hell Night, where they were allegedly physically abused all night long. Due to the alleged beatings, Joseph said he had to be admitted to the hospital, where he spent 11 days recovering. He had to have surgery, get a blood transfusion, and even had to relearn how to walk. Joseph claimed he told USM about the alleged abuse, not noting what was done about it, but nothing was done about it. I'm sorry. We see violent incidents like these time and again across the nation, but instead of taking action, fraternity leaders and university officials alike sweep it under the rug and write it off as boys will be boys, said attorney Bakari Sellers. He's a African American guy. He'd be on CNN and stuff too. This isn't useful indiscretion. This isn't tradition, and it sure isn't brotherhood. It's criminal violence and abuse, and it needs to end. Joseph is suing both the fraternity and the university for damages. All right, so, I know all about this. I'm just, for transparency, I'm a part of a fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. So I know kind of the lay of this land. I don't know if Bakari is or not. It could be, who knows. But once again, when you're there, you're not really thinking about the big picture, unfortunately. But as you get older, you start to understand, the bigger picture, So a lot of times these types of things are happening, and, these are young college kids, 21, 20, 19, in that age bracket. Brains ain't fully developed all the way yet. So, historically this has occurred, and for whatever reason, this is just something that most of these organizations just can't let go, even though they're trying their best to make sure that it doesn't happen. There's always a possibility and an opportunity for someone who doesn't abide by those same principles and rules to step out there and do some things that could jeopardize the bigger picture, the organization itself, and the particular individual that these things are allegedly happening to. So I wish Omega Psi Phi the best. I mean, they've had a tough run at it over the past year or so, but at the same time, we got to be, kids that's out here on these college campuses, you got to be more responsible, because all you're doing is really putting yourself in a situation to not just hurt yourself, hurt these individuals that you're hazing, and more so than that, you're also putting families in jeopardy, because these are their kids. They're sending them off to school. They're thinking that these organizations are great organizations, which they are, but they're definitely not expecting to be receiving phone calls that their loved ones are injured, hurt, and in some cases, no longer here. So we got to clean it up. It's got to be, a better way to do things. And, like I said, I wish, allegedly, if this did happen to this particular person, I wish him well, his family well. But, these organizations, we got to start kind of taking a bigger, looking at this from a bigger, bigger picture, because it's just really causing a lot of, unnecessary strife. It's really hurting these organizations in a big way. So, I would say, you guys got to get back to being on your best behavior. The organization is not just about, the rite of passage in order to become a part of the organization. You gotta think that it could potentially not even be an organization by your actions. So be careful out there in them streets, all you, Greek organizations. Like I said, I understand where you're coming from to a certain degree. But you gotta clean this mess up. You gotta stop hurting people. You gotta stop putting your hands on folks. There's other ways to, make sure that you're dealing with some like-minded brothers than to put them in situations where they got to be in hospitals and, getting surgeries and things of that nature. It's deep, but it ain't that deep. All right. So let's keep it moving. All right. Nope, definitely not that one. Here we go. Nope, not that one. Nope. Where is it at? All right, so as we can see, the Trump administration is recalling hundreds of federal employees laid off earlier this year. Hold on for 1 second, y'all. All right, so the Trump administration is recalling hundreds of federal employees laid off earlier this year under Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency after the cuts left agencies understaffed and disrupted operations. According to an internal memo, the General Service Administration has given dismissed employees until the end of the week to accept reinstatement with a return to work date of October 6th. Many of the workers have continued to receive pay during their 7-month absence, while GSA racked up costly lease issues by cutting staff too quickly. Doge's aggressive push to shrink the federal workforce led to thousands of resignations and retirements at GSA, the agency that manages federal buildings. Nearly half of the agency's 7,500 leases were targeted for cancellation, and hundreds of properties slated for sale. However, backlash forced the administration to spare nearly 500 leases, while poorly managed cuts left 131 leases to expire without the government tenants vacating, exposing agencies to steep fees. Critics, including congressional Democrats, argues the cuts created costly confusion without delivering promised savings. Doge projected $460 million in lease savings has already been revised down to $140 million. Meanwhile, the Government Accountability Office is reviewing GSA's workforce and property management, with findings expected in the coming months. So, jump out there and F around and find out is what they just did on that one. Just coming in like a bull in China, in Chinatown, and you end up, shooting the gun quicker than you were supposed to, and getting these kind of results is what you end up with. So, we all knew something of this nature would happen. Once again, folks coming in, a lot of times new administrations, you can't fault them. They got their own agendas, so they come in and think their agendas are the best agendas to ever be created, and then they run into these kind of situations. But the thing about it, folks was already telling them that this was going to be a part of what they was doing, and they just once again, arrogance comes into play, and they, shouted them down, fired them, whatever else they may have done, to these folks, to the point now where they, had to circle back and ask these folks, after they've been, just shaken up and thrown out and disrupted, to come on back in and be a part of a company or agency that, if I was working for them and I was treated this way, I get it. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do because you got to put food on the table. But I would really, be giving them the side eye every step of the way. And not just the side eye, I would just, I would really, really have to evaluate, is this, something that I would want to do? Because in my mind, I'm thinking if they could do it just like that, then they'll have the opportunity, if needed, or if they want to do it again. And you have to go through those same emotions all over again, losing your job, looking out and trying to figure out what's going to be your next step, and things of that nature. So I would tread lightly on this. I get it if you have to step back into it so you can keep getting your money and keep doing the things that you need to be doing. But if there's a way that you can do something else, and hopefully on your own, but if not, get in a different position, in a different situation, because you should have set skill set, whatever it is that you were doing at these agencies, that should be transferable to something else. But I would be, I don't know, because the way they went about handling that particular business and the damage that has been already done, I don't know if it's, I get the folks who just want to get back to work and things of that nature, but I would really be looking at this. I would have to sit down and really think about it, to be honest with you. But we'll keep you guys informed about it. We'll let you know if something else comes down the pike. But for the most part, it is what it is. Okay. Let's go to this. All right. So according to the latest UBS Global Wealth Report 2025, United States continue to dominate global wealth rankings with nearly 24 millionaires calling the country home. That means roughly 1 in every 14 American has a net worth of at least 1 million, measured in US dollars. The report highlights the U.S. as the single largest contributor to the world's millionaire population, accounting for almost 40% of global millionaires. Despite economic uncertainty and market volatility, America's wealthy class has continued to expand, with more than 1,000 new millionaires created daily in 2024. Globally, the number of millionaires surpasses 60 million, driven by gains in equity market, property values, and current shifts. UBS analysts note that while wealthy inequality remains a pressing issue, the overall growth in high net worth households reflect the resilience of the global economy. In the U.S., the trend underscores both opportunity and disparity. Excuse me. While some households are rapidly building wealth through investment and business ownership, many others are still grappling with debt, inflation, and stagnant wages. Still, the headline figure stands out. With nearly 24 million millionaires, the United States is home to more wealthy individuals than any other country, and the gap is widening. So, I mean, with that one, I just, in America, get into the bag. You know what I'm saying? And there's, I've preached this a million times. There's so many different opportunities out here. You just got to lock in and be patient. This don't happen overnight. Becoming a millionaire doesn't happen overnight. It's a steady grind, and then you look up because of the positive moves that you made, the businesses that that you've started, the stock strategy that you've implemented, the real estate that you've purchased, and in portfolios that you built, the real estate that you flipped, all that comes into play. And for the first time, that's happening at a rampant pace. So, I can see, that the country is, without all the craziness that's going on around us, and like in the government and things of that nature, and, all the just whatever's happening out there, people say is, dictatorship, authoritarian, regime, whatever the case is. You can pay attention to that kind of stuff if you want to. And I always say kind of keep an eye on it, because you just never know what might happen, because we've seen some things happen in the past that we don't want to revisit again just because we wasn't awake at the wheel. So I'm saying always stay awake at the wheel, but understand that this is opportunity, galore, and there's really nothing stopping you from, stepping out there and handling your business. It's just, you just got to make sure that you find something that you love to do, something that's going to actually make money, and, be on your way. It's not that hard to get to a millionaire, status. And when they say, it ain't like they're saying you got to have $1 million in the bank. They're just saying your net worth needs to be $1 million. And that includes stocks, that includes real estate, that includes, your business holdings, so on and so forth. So I like to bring these things up because I just be wanting folks to understand that anybody can do it. It's not hard to do. It's just not enough conversation going on about how to do it. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's still doing 9 to 5, thinking that, that's going to be the best bet. But we're entering a world where that's just not going to, always be available to you. So you got to figure other means out to help you to get to, the next level. All right. All right. So let's keep it moving. I thought this was interesting. I like to always bring up some interesting things. All right. So female nurses are the most unfaithful profession that the studies show. Researchers has suggested that professionals in the healthcare field, particularly women, report higher rates of infidelity compared to many other occupations. In one survey of working professionals, nearly a quarter of women in healthcare roles, such as doctors and nurses, admitted to having engaged in an affair. This rate placed them at the top of the list of professions most likely to report infidelity. Analysis point to a combination of factors that may explain the trend. Healthcare jobs are high stress, emotional demanding, and often involve longer or irregular hours. The constant exposure to tense situations coupled with close working relationships between colleagues can blur boundaries and create environments where emotional or physical connections outside of marriage are more likely to form. Additionally, the sheer amount of time spent at work compared to at home may heighten these opportunities as well. While this research does not mean that all or even most healthcare professionals, while may engage in this, but the research does not mean that all or even it highlights how the pressures of certain professions may influence relationship dynamics. It's also important to note that these findings come from self-reported survey data, meaning the numbers reflect those who choose to disclose their experiences rather than a complete picture of the entire profession. Still, the results draw attention to how professional environments can intersect with personal lives in ways that shape trust and fidelity. I mean, it just makes sense. Like you say, you got traveling nurses, you got, nurses, doctors, all, working umpteen amount of hours, and these are attractive, these are intelligent, folks that's around each other. They're all, pretty much getting money so they can handle, being able to wine and dine if need to. And, it's just one of those professions where, doctors are probably looking at nurses and nurses are looking at doctors and so on and so forth. And then next thing you know, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? You gotta understand that if you're not taking care of your business at home, that then, 9 times out of 10 or some big numbers as far as, what the actual number is, it's going to be some affairs in them worlds, in them circles, because it's just, like they said, it's intense, and you're working long hours. You're working side by side with these individuals, so they're getting to know you as a person, getting to know you as a professional, and attractions begin to get established. So I just wish, you folks out there well, and just remember, if you're gonna think about having an affair, you might as well just go ahead and move on from the individual that you're with, so you can, alleviate the pain that's going to end up occurring because of your actions. You know what I'm saying? So that would be like the smart thing to do. I get attractions sometimes tend to, disguise that, but you got to realize that, you got the other person at home, that you're gonna have to go to and look at and know that at work doing ish that you're not supposed to be doing. So keep yourself together out there, folks. Doctors, leave these nurses alone, and nurses leave these doctors alone, and doctors leave each other alone, and nurses leave each other alone. And I can't believe that it's the females that's, heading this, this research and study up, that they're the ones who are doing the most infidelity. So that was surprising. But if something else comes down the pipe, I like to throw some of this kind of stuff up out there in there, so you can just have some things to think about. All my nurses, doctors, don't be mad at me if I'm exposing you in any kind of way. But it is what it is. All right, let's keep it moving. Okay, so Texas A&M had a hazing incident as well. This is more of a white fraternity, so I just don't want it always to be, an African-American fraternity. Everybody's hazing from the looks of it. So a hazing incident at Texas A&M have left several Kappa Sigma fraternity members hospitalized and triggered a criminal investigation. According to the New York Post, the incident occurred on September 24th at the Kappa Sigma Lodge in College Station, where pledges were taken to an off-campus location. The Brazos Sheriff's Office said pledges were allegedly forced to work out in dark, filthy condition that led some to pass out, while others were left unable to walk and report experiencing black urine. Investigators confirmed the alleged hazing had led to fraternity suspension. One pledge described being punished beyond their limits. All in the mud, all real dark. People yelling at you, shining lights in your face. You're getting dizzy. You're throwing up, they said, explaining that pledges were told to squat as a group, possibly up to 500 times. So, these guys, they go about doing stuff, different than African-American fraternities and sororities. So I don't really know the ins and outs of, how they go about their business, but from the looks of it, they asses is in trouble from doing some things to their folks to the point where they've been suspended. So not only is it African-American fraternities, excuse me, aren't the only ones. I'm apologizing for. I just been moving. So after lunch, you tend to be on the yarn side a lot. So I truly apologize. But in this case, they're caught, and they're being looked at, they're being investigated. So just like these African American fraternities, you got Caucasian fraternities and sororities that are finding themselves in these hazing situations as well. So we'll keep our eye on it. If something comes down the pike, I'll definitely report back to you guys and let you know. All right. Okay. Let's keep it moving. All right. All right, so here's our money universities right here. New analysis show that some of the nation's most selective universities do not top U.S. News and World Report's rankings, but also produce the highest numbers of multimillionaires and billionaires. While Princeton University was named the top national university this year, Harvard University leads in wealth outcomes with an estimated 18,000 alumni worth 30 million or more and 104 billionaires, the most of any school worldwide. The University of Pennsylvania ranks second in ultra high net worth alumni with 9,300, followed by Stanford with 8,400. Other elite schools included MIT, Yale, Chicago, and Northwestern, also ranked highly for producing wealthy graduates. Analysis point to a network effect where connections formed at top university help drive long-term opportunities and wealth creation. The findings, based on data from wealth research firm Entra and academic studies, highlight how educational prestige, alumni networks, and resources contribute to financial success where well beyond graduation, right? All right, so you see that you got Princeton, MIT, Harvard, Stanford, Yale, University of Chicago, University of Pennsylvania, Northwestern, and Duke University. So that's kind of where a lot of the bags are being derived from. So I mean, it don't surprise me. Those schools have been an incubator for wealth. Most of the ones who've created generational wealth from family to family mostly attend these types of universities. And as you can see, one of the key points was them networking with each other. And I think even in, PWIs and then Black colleges, HBCUs, I think more has to happen in that arena as well. All these wealthy individuals, rich individuals that's at these, PWIs and HBCUs, more so HBCUs than PWIs. But, you gotta be able to come back and really put forth, substantial amounts of money to the university. So, things can grow, networking can continue to grow, and you can't just expect to get it and then be selfish with it. You got to give back, to your universities, in order to help them to, be out here. Look at them numbers that I just read. I mean, Harvard got 108 billionaires. I wonder how many billionaires do HBCUs have. We're gonna have to kind of take a look at that and come back to the table. How many actual millionaires? I know it's probably a ton of millionaires that's been at a HBCU. I know quite a few. I could be one of them myself. I pledge the fifth on that. But we just got to get better. We have to get better at actually, becoming what these Ivy League schools, they are so far ahead of us when you really look at it, because they were the ones who were educating the creme de la creme of the United States. They were those universities, so they got a long history of educating the wealthy, and that just doesn't stop. The wealthy, networks with the wealthy. The wealthy wants to be in all these universities, all these top universities, because they understand that the networking and the relationships that you establish while you're here, along with the education as well, is more than likely going to put you in a situation where financially you don't have to be concerned about much, right? So, big ups to them though. I mean, they figured it out, and they've kept it close to the vest, to the point where people been able to take full advantage of it. And as we can tell, as they just told us, they out here, getting it in right in front of our face. So take heed and understand that you got these same opportunities that they do. You just got to take full advantage of them. You can't be scared, right? So we'll keep our eye on that. I just thought I'd bring that up just to kind of shed some light on what's really going on out here in this world, right? All right, so let's keep it moving. All right, so let's talk about my boy. All right, so Nas, hip hop legend, just received a major boost in his push to help transform his hometown. The CAC has unanimously approved the $5 billion plan to expand Resorts World New York City and Queens into a full-scale casino and entertainment destination. The proposal, backed by Resorts World and supported by Nas, including luxury hotels, expanded gaming, live entertainment venues, restaurants, and community investment initiatives. For many, the project represents both economic opportunity and cultural pride, with Nas at the forefront, bringing hometown credibility to one of New York's most ambitious developed projects. What this means, the unanimous CAC approval is a crucial milestone. It signals strong local support and helps move the project forward in a highly competitive race for one of the 3 downstate New York casino licenses. What's next? The State Gaming Facility Location Board review. The proposal now advances to the state level board, which will await competing bids from across the New York City region. The final licensing decisions, only 3 full casino licenses will be rewarded. Report World's Queens plan is seen as a front runner, but it still must clear regulatory, financial, and political hurdles. Negotiations are still in existence. Expect continued discussions about job creation, traffic concerns, community reinvestment, and the balance between gaming and neighborhood impact. If fully approved, the Queens project will mark one of the largest private investments in New York City history, with Nas playing a visible role in shaping the future of his borough. I mean, this FOI, Nas is probably, just for real, one of my favorite artists of all time. And, I know Jay-Z was just trying to do the same thing and it didn't go quite his way. But, you can't win them all. And I know Jay-Z know that. And Nas, once again, it's like they're both playing big money games on a regular basis. And that's the greatest thing about all of this. It allows us to be able to see guys who we've looked up to in the past, we admire for their rhyme skills, and now they've taken it to the boardroom and they doing billion-dollar deals. So we like to just give Nas big props. Continuing to be one of the greatest MCs to ever do it. And now he's trying to show us that not only can you be a great MC, you can, also be a great businessman at the same time. So folks can have 2 forms, to look at and to understand that any and everything is possible, right? So we'll definitely keep an eye on that one. Just wanted to bring that up because we respect Nas. We love his music, but more so than just the music. Now we're starting to love his business move. He's made some impactful moves in other directions. I think he was, a part of what's the doorbell that everybody's ring doorbell. He was one of the early investors on that. So now it's been doing this thing low key, but not so low key as well. I just like how he moves. Keeps his nose clean. Still continuously puts out music, and now, making $1 billion moves in the boardroom. So let's big up to Nas. All right. Let's keep it moving. Okay, so this is a quick one. Former FBI Director James Comey has been indicted by the feds. According to reports, Donald Trump got his wish as former FBI Director James Comey was federally indicted on 2 counts, making false statements to Congress and obstruction of justice. The charges related to Comey's Senate testimony on Trump's alleged 2016 Russia ties. Trump had previously clashed with the U.S. attorney, whom he later fired after prosecutors initially found insufficient evidence. I don't really know how to feel about this for real. I mean, I know, the president's being, petty, but I just think this guy right here had a lot to do with, the president being in the position that he's in right now, because Comey was out there doing some crazy stuff when Hillary Clinton was running for president, and he brought up something at the last minute that really kind of put a kibosh on her run. So I don't want anyone to be just getting picked on or bullied because you got somebody of power that can just do that. But Comey, you was on some BS back in the day. And we ain't really forgot it. We don't want this to happen to you because where it's coming from. But bro, you was one of the ones who put, a situation, in place that could have not had us in these situations that we've been in. So, kind of in the middle on this one. I know if there's no evidence, you get yourself out of it. Kudos to you. But we kind of remember that ish that you did back in the day, to the point where this could even, the stuff that's happening now could potentially not be happening because the person that's making it happen wouldn't be in a position to be making it happen, Comey. So, we'll keep our eye on it, see what Comey do, see if he's able to get his ASS out of it. But, Comey, we got our eye on you, bro. You did you did a big one. You know, and everybody else know what I'm talking about. All right, so let's keep it moving. All right, so Michigan lawmakers passed a 24% marijuana tax to raise $420 million for road repairs. So the Michigan lawmakers have voted to add a 24% tax on wholesale marijuana sales to help pay for road repairs. The plan, called the Comprehensive Road Funding Tax Act, House Bill 4951, passed the State House 78-21 with support from both Republicans and Democrats. If the bill becomes law, the new tax will start January 1st, 2026, and expected to bring in about $420 million a year. The money would flow to the Neighborhood Road Fund for local roads and bridges, with some directed to other state road projects. But marijuana business warned that the move could hurt the legal market. Michigan already had a 10% retail excise tax on cannabis. Adding a 24% wholesale tax will bring the total marijuana specific tax to about 34%. one of the highest in the country. Business owners say they would likely have to raise prices since wholesalers and retailers usually pass new costs down to customers. They warned this could drive buyers back to the illegal market. The bill still needs to pass the Senate and be signed by Governor Gretchen Whitton. I agree. I mean, 34% for some weed, tax for some weed is crazy. And it is going to drive people back to the illegal market. And that's not a safe place right now, especially with fentanyl and all this crazy mess that they got going on, out there in the world. So we'll keep our eye on this. I just wanted to bring it to the forefront. I wanted to spend too much time on it because it's not law yet. But it's definitely, if you've got some folks who you can influence, this is going to be a mess. 34%. They definitely going to pass this down to the consumers, and weed is going to be sky high. So we'll keep our eye on it. We'll let you know if anything else comes about it. All right. And last but not least, the federal government is set to shut down. The president's administration remained locked in a standoff over a new spending bill. Unless an agreement is reached by the end of the day, funding for many federal agencies will lapse at midnight, triggering furloughs, service disruptions, and economic uncertainty. At the center of the deadlock are disputes between Republicans and Democrats over health care subsidies, Medicaid funding, and broader budget priorities. While both sides have expressed interest in passing a short-term measure to keep the government operating, negotiations have stalled over policy riders attached to the bill. Federal agencies have also begun preparing for the potential shutdown. The Department of Health and Human Service, for example, has warned that more than 40% of its workforce would be furloughed. Other agencies are drafting contingency plans that could affect everything from routine regulatory oversight to national park operations. This showdown highlights the deep partisan divides in Washington, which each side blaming the other for failing to compromise. For everyday Americans, the immediate impact could mean delayed services, uncertainty for federal workers, and ripple effects across the economy. As the midnight deadline approaches, all eyes remain on Capitol Hill to see whether lawmakers can bridge their differences or if the nation will face its first government shutdown in nearly 7 years. So, I mean, with that, that's just, you got a president who wants to kind of run everything. You got a Democratic base that's, weak and shaking in the boots, for the most part. I think it's going to be a short-term bill. For the most part, they're not going to let the government. I'm not going to say that because you see who we got in charge. Anything can happen. I want to just say, no, it's not going to happen. But for the most part, it's probably not going to happen because, a lot can happen with a government shutdown, but a lot has already happened. So, excuse me, I don't think that, it would be a big deal for these guys who's in charge right now to, allow that kind of pain to come to the forefront. But we'll see. They got to make a decision by the end of the day today. By the next time I get back on this mic, I'll be able to report back and let you know what happened. All right. Okay. So let's keep it moving. All right. We don't have a deep dive today. I gave my people, I gave them today off. And then our real estate hacks, basically, I'm looking at them. We got the equity swap hack. I think these were hacks that we may have covered already, so I don't want to get all off into them, but we'll just for the sake of getting into it. Equity swap hack: trade unused equity in your primary home for a stake in an investment property, a creative way to invest without refinancing. Lease option hack: control the property with a lease option, then sublease at a higher rate, build cash flow without owning the asset. Hidden HELOC hack: many credit unions quietly offer HELOCs against investment properties, not just primaries. Use it for cheap expansion capital. Section 8 premium hack: in some markets, Section 8 pays above market rent. Savvy investors target zip codes where vouchers outpay private tenants. So actually, we haven't talked about those for hacks. So I appreciate my team for giving me for new hacks, because I hadn't seen the Section 8 premium hack or the hidden HELOC hack. So big ups to my team for putting forth those 4 hacks for us. Like I said, we don't have a deep dive today, so this has been like a quick show. I appreciate your time, guys. But that's going to be the wrap for the Mortgage Mayhem show. This is episode number 31. So from EBT crackdowns to Nas $5 billion casino play, we've seen how money, power, and policy collide in real time. And remember, chaos creates opportunity. And then use today 4 real estate hacks to position yourself ahead of the curve. More importantly, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, I am G Money, and this is where real estate meets real talk. And I am out, my peoples. Have a great rest of the week, great weekend. See you back here next Tuesday. And I look forward to bringing you some new information. So peace out.